Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of The Awesome with Cody. As usual, I'm your host, Cody, and today we are wrapping up May's theme of movies that I watched when I was young because of Star Wars. I don't remember the title of this season. It's just a bunch of old sci-fi movies that I watched when I was young, much like I watched the original Star Wars movies. So today we're talking about two movies. We'll make it quick-ish. The first one is Tron. The second one is its sequel, Tron Legacy. And I'll go briefly over this one, who's in it, who made it, and then I'll jump into the other one. And we'll go from there. So anyways, Tron. Tron is a 1982 American science fiction action-adventure film written and directed by Steven Lisberg, I'm not too sure how to say his name. And stars a handful of people. Jeff Bridges as Kevin Flynn, as well as his counterparts in it. Clue. I couldn't even think of his name right now. You have Bruce Boxleitner, Leitner, I think it's Leitner, whatever, who portrays Alan Bradley and Tron, the character Tron itself, or himself itself. I'm not too sure. Then you have David Warner as Ed Dillinger, as well as Sark, and uncredited as the voice of the MCP or Master Control Program, which I will get to in a little bit. You have Cindy Morgan as Dr. Laura Baines, who also plays Yori. You have Bernard Hughes as Dr. Walter Gibbs, and he plays Dumont. And then, he plays the uncredited old version of the Master Control Program. It'll make sense when I get to there. You have Dan Shore as Roy Kleinberg, also who portrays Ram. You have actually that's it for that here cast of the first one. I'll go into the second one. Who makes that one? Well, first off, Steven Lisberg hasn't made a whole lot of things that most people have known or will know. Something called Cosmic Cartoon. Animalypics, basically Olympics and animals put together. I don't know what the fuck that is. He did Tron. He did a movie called Hot Pursuit in 1987. He did a movie called Slipstream in 1989, and then he was producer on Tron Legacy, and he had a cameo in it as Shattuck's character in the movie as well. Jeff Bridges, we know who Jeff Bridges is. He's the dude. And he abides. Ha 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 ha. Anyways, so he's been in, I'm not gonna go through all the stuff he's been in, it's a long list. Most recently, he was in Bad Times at El Royale. I love that movie. You should watch it. But it's Jeff Bridges. We all know who Jeff Bridges is. The next up, let's see who's Bruce Boxleitner. Like I said, plays Tron as well as his counterpart. What else? He's been in a few things. Let's go down here real quick. Big stuff he was in. Well, I mean, he did come back for Tron Legacy. He was in The Babe, Free Fall, Gods and Generals. that kind of thing. Not a whole lot of stuff. Television-wise, he was in the Kenny Rogers the Gambler movies. His most famous television role, I would say, is that of Captain John J. Sheridan from the Babylon 5 series. All of them in the movies. How many years was that? Where's Babylon 5 at? Oh, he's in Hawaii Five-0 for an episode. Where are you, Babylon 5? Bro, where are you in this list? Why don't I see you? Oh, right there. For 87 episodes, he played Captain John J. Sheridan from 1994 to 1998 in Babylon 5. I don't know why I was looking at this and not seeing it, but whatever. So that's Bruce Boxleitner. That's who he is. You have David Warner. David Warner is a pretty famous character actor, you could say. Famous for being in a bunch of the Star Trek movies. Which ones, you may ask? If I could find him in this fucking list. I had everything lined up and then I moved everything and it fucked it all up. Where are his movies? He was in oh, there it is. Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier, Star Trek 6, Undiscovered Country, and he was on the television program Star Trek The Next Generation, as well as he was in the original Star Trek as well. And then he was he was in Mary Poppins, he was in Titanic, he played the doctor, scientist dude that created the Turtles in the 1990s versions of the Teenage Mutant Turtle movies. He was featured in 2. Played Professor Jordan Perry. He's the dude that created the Ooze. Does it say who he played on Next Generation? I don't think it does. Oh, yeah. He also played the voice of Ra's al Ghul in Batman the Animated Series. So that's pretty dope. He was in Beastmaster 3? Ugh. Hey, he was in an episode of Babylon 5. That's pretty cool. Star Trek, The Next Generation. He was in a 2-parter episode, apparently. Goal Madrid. Sure. If you see him, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that guy. He's been in a ton of stuff. And he has been in a ton of stuff. Like a ton of stuff. If we go back, where's Mary Poppins? Somewhere in this list. He has so many movies. Am I on the right thing? No, I am not. Mary Poppins Returns, right? I said Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins Returns. Where he played the banker, right? The main banker dude? The old one? Not the younger one. Where is he at in this list? It doesn't matter. Oh, Admiral Boom. I'm sorry. He was Admiral Boom. He's the dude that shot the retired Navy officer who lived in the boathouse because it was a house that looked like a boat. Anyhow, Mary Poppins Returns. Cindy Morgan. I legit don't remember her very well. I remember her in Tron, clearly. But I don't remember her from much of anything else. And apparently, she's been in a handful of things. Lots of television programs in the early 80s to the mid-90s. 1s and 2s. But she played the I guess love interest, you could say, in Caddyshack, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's Cindy Morgan. Then you have Bernard Hughes. Bernard Hughes is a beloved character actor from the 50s and 60s. I mean, he played the grandpa in Lost Boys, if y'all remember that movie. He was dope in that. Know what I mean? If you saw him, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy in some stuff, and you have, because he's been in a bunch of stuff. But yeah, that's Bernard Hughes. He's dope. Dan Shore, who I legit did not realize he did half the stuff he did. Film-wise, he's done a lot of random shit. But my favorite thing I saw when I was looking through this list is he played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I was like, holy shit, that's Ram. That's fucking rad. I did not know it before I was doing my research. I never put the two together because he looked fairly young in 1990 or 1989. Then I realized, oh, that's only, from Tron to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, it's 7 years. Of course he looks still young. It's only 7 years. You know what I mean? It's not that old at that point. Anyhow, I digress. In television-wise, he was in a handful of episodes of different stuff. Murder, She Wrote, Beauty and the Beast, 30-something, Next Generation, Star Trek Next Generation, Star Trek Voyager, played the same character, Judging Amy, and X-Files. I mean, he played second ER nurse in X-Files, so you should remember that. Anyways, I thought it was interesting he played Billy the Kid in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I love that movie, and I just bought them both on iTunes today for $10, which is a great deal. Get me ready for Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is the upcoming third movie in that franchise. All right, so Tron Legacy, before I go into the story and how they both kind of go back and forth, Tron Legacy is a 2010 American science fiction action film directed by Joseph Kosinski, who I have talked about before on this podcast, because he directed and wrote Oblivion with Tom Cruise, and I love that movie a lot because it's fucked up. So he wrote this. He co-wrote? No, maybe he didn't co-wrote. Did he co-wrote? I can't talk. No, it was just he just directed this one. Adam Horowitz and Edward, I don't know how to say his last name, but I think it's Kitsy, who co-wrote it along with based on a story by a bunch of people. This movie stars really not that many people. There are a lot of people, just not a lot of named people. You actually recognize a lot of them, but not enough of them. There's a couple cool. There's one really cool. I'll say two cameos in it that aren't. I mentioned one of them, which is the director of the original Tron movie, or writer and director of the original Tron movie, Steven Berger. I keep calling him Lisberg, but it's Lisberger. But he plays Shaddix. He appears as Shaddix, who is the bartender. And then I'll get to the other two cameos in a second here. I'll go over everything else. The main star is Garrett Hudland, who plays Sam or Samuel Flynn, who is the son of Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, reprised his role as Kevin Flynn in this. Also as of Clue, co-identified likeness utility is what Clue stands for, by the way. Then you have Olivia Wilde, who plays Cora. You have Bruce Boxleitner reprises his role as Alan Bradley, as well as Tron and Risler. Rinsler. Yes, Rinsler. Good lord. You have Michael Sheen who plays Zeus and Castor. He's that's a whole different story. He's really cool in this. You have James Fran who plays Jarvis, and then I guess it would be three. Yeah, that's a third. That's another one cameo I should mention too. I didn't bring that one up. But the cameos I was speaking of is you have Cillian Murphy as uncredited as appearing as young Edward Dillinger Jr., who is the younger counterpart to Ed Dillinger, he's the son of the former NCOM senior executive Ed Dillinger, portrayed by David Warner from the original film. He plays his son, and who's now the head of NCOM's software design team. Boom, there you go. I don't know why I couldn't speak those words out of my face. Anyhow, so that's cool to see him in that. He's uncredited. It's a weird thing when you get uncredited, but I like Cillian Murphy, and I saw him. I was like, Cillian Murphy, that's rad. Then you have the music duo Daft Punk, who did the soundtrack. They play the DJs or the disc jockey programs in Castor's End of the Line Club. Again, Castor being portrayed by Michael Sheen in this movie. And then, so that was the last one, really. Oh, well, okay. Last one is actually Beau Garrett. So Beau Garrett, I don't know. I say it's a cameo because the role wasn't very big. I don't know if that actually is considered a cameo. But she plays Gem, one of the 4 programs known as Sirens. But anyways, so if you look her up, you know who Beau Garrett is. It doesn't matter. But I thought there was more of a cameo than an actual role. Anyhow, so yeah, that's that. That's who's in it. If you're wondering, I talked to Olivia Wilde in last month's podcast when I did Cowboys and Aliens because she's in that. If you're wondering who Garrett Hedlund is most notably for, he's been in a bunch of movies, but most notably for Friday Night Lights, Country Strong, and I think that's mostly it. Or his big ones. Most recently, he was in Triple Frontier with Ben Affleck on the Netflix. He was in other stuff too, but that was the big thing. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that. He's in the upcoming United States versus Billie Holiday. It's a different thing. Most notably, I know him from, Tron Legacy for sure. And the short film Tron the Next Day, which is sort of kind of a teaser for a sequel that never happened. Anyhow, whenever I think of him, I think of a movie called Death Sentence. If you haven't seen this movie, it's directed by James Wan. I'm going to go into it real quick. I'm not going to talk all about it. But it's from 2007. He plays the bad guy in it. So in this movie, it has Kevin Bacon. Again, it's directed by James Wan of, now massive fame, but way back in the day, he directed a little movie called Saw. And one of the most recent ones is Aquaman. So that's fucking strange. Or is that James Wan? Did James Wan do that one? No, that's Justin. No, not Justin Lin. Justin Lin did Star Trek. Right? Am I confusing myself again? James Wan did a bunch of the horror movies like the Conjuring and those ones. He did direct Aquaman. I was right. Aquaman and Fast and Furious 7. But he did Insidious, The Conjuring, Dead Silence, which is a movie I can't watch more than once because it has puppets and they creep me out. But he created the Saw franchise, which I've talked about on here before. But Death Sentence, if you guys want a super gritty action movie that's super violent, this movie was amazing, and nobody's seen it, and it did shitty in the box office, and it's just a fun movie. I mean, I'd say fun. It's fucked up, but it's it's an enjoyable movie. Anyways, I digress. That's Garrett Hudlin. He's been in a lot of stuff. He sings country music as well, which is crazy, but not like unheard of. But it all because he did his own songs in Country Strong, and he played Johnny Five in Inside Llewell Davis, which I've talked about on here as well. Oh, and Unbroken. He was in Unbroken. I don't know if you guys have seen this movie. I shouldn't enjoy it, but he's really good in it. It's a movie directed by Angelina Jolie. But yeah, anyways, he's been in a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, I forgot I played James Hook and Pan. Anyways, I'm way off of my kilter here. Anyways, yes. So, he plays young Sam, or not young Sam. He plays Sam Flynn, Kevin Flynn's son from the first movie. So quickly, we'll go over the movies because I'm going into the longer realm of here, and I'm trying to keep them short-ish, which is hard for me to do because I ramble. Anyways, so the first movie is very simple, and it's there's a term for what it's called, and I don't remember what it is from way back in the fucking day, but mirror plots, I think, or mirror. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I'm not a fucking movie expert. Basically, there's two plots to the movie, and they are essentially linked as well as mirroring each other. So there is a company called Encom, who basically has a software engineer named Kevin Flynn. He starts creating video game programs, and he designs 5 full games, and then they're stolen by another engineer, who is played by David Warner, who becomes the senior executive vice president of Encom and former coworker of Flynn. And when he does this, he takes credit for it, but Flynn knows that David Warner's character, Ed, is a piece of shit and lazy, and he's not very good at programming. So what happens is after this happens, he fires Flynn from the company, and becomes powerful and starts changing things along with a program he designed called Master Control Master Control Programmers, or MCP. Using this, he then can control ins and outs of the corporation and the software, and it starts to grow and learn on its own, become more powerful, and he finds out that it's reaching beyond its means, but he's not really going to stop it, mainly because I don't think he knows how. And so Flynn keeps hacking into the system, trying to find records of the games he made, because he knows that there'll be evidence, and if he can put the evidence back together, he can then take down Ed Dillinger, and he will get what's coming to him. Because when they released the video games to the mass market, he realized that he didn't change anything, including the name, which means he's like, oh shit, I don't think he changed anything. Boom, I'm going to get evidence. So the list of he's doing this. He's using a program he designed called CLUE, or co-identified likeness utility, which is a hacking program developed by Flynn to break into the mainframe and find this evidence that he needs. Well, the Master Control program catches it and destroys CLUE. And he's been doing this a lot, but this is the closest he's ever gotten. And so MCP gets worried, and he brings it up to Dillinger, who's like, shit, what are we going to do? Let's investigate it. Boom, 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 right? Cool. Well, Alan Bradley's character, who is a former partner to Flynn and a fellow programmer, NCOM. He meets up with his girlfriend at the time, who is the ex-girlfriend of Flynn, who's played by Cindy Morgan, and they go to Flynn, say, "Hey, you need to calm down. NCOM is aware of your attempts to hack," and he's like, "Bullshit! They're never going to be able to stop me. I'm going to get what I need." Well, then they hatch a plan together, and they're going to break into NCOM, and he's going to find the evidence that he needs. Well, the MCP knows what's happening, and so he takes control. He takes things in his own hands, and he not accidentally, on purpose, digitizes Flynn into the grid, which is the program land of the world of Tron, and the grid is what it's actually called. Tron is a character, and I'll get to that in a minute. Why it's called Tron Legacy and Tron, because believe it or not, Flynn's not the main character. Tron is. Boom, yeah, haha. Inside the grid, at least. Outside the grid, he's definitely the fucking man. Anyways, so the Master Control program hatches a plan to bring Flynn into the game world, and kill him. Well, he doesn't go very well for him. He gets out, breaks out along with Ram and Tron, and they go on an adventure to stop them. The first thing they do is need to unlock the controls that Master Control Unit has put down, or Master Control Program has put down, allowing Alan to talk to Tron to be able to defend and break down the controls that MCP has on the grid. And so when he finally gets him, he upgrades his disc to be able to take down the MCP, but he has to get to the core to use it. Well, MCP sees this, and he starts pushing everybody at him. And there's some close calls, and then Flynn finds out that he can control things because he's a user, not a program, and so he's manipulating stuff, and he ends up essentially, air quotes, sacrificing himself, jumping into the core, basically distracting the MCP for Tron to take the disc and throw it in there and destroy him, and it forces Flynn out of the game and back in the real world with his evidence to take down Dillinger. Boom. All right. Jump to Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy, a bunch of years later, 2010 to be exact, from 1982, 2010. Boom. There you go. So in this future, or at the time present day, Flynn has disappeared. No one knows where he's at. The last time he saw him is when Sam was very young. He went into work for some reason, and he was basically, spoiler, trapped in the grid. He was trapped there by his own creation, Clue, who is a little upset that he was thrown aside, essentially, and killed, because you think he's dead in the first one, but he's not. He comes back, and he is the antagonist of the movie, and he's basically evolved within the grid and has taken over in the virtual world. And so but he's trapped Flynn there, and when Sam finds out, he ventures into the grid himself to save his father and break free the grid, much like his father did many years ago in the original Tron. The reason it's called Tron Legacy is because there's this Tron is this folklore within the digital world, and he is essentially supposed to be gone, but really he's actually been repurposed by Clue to be basically his killer. he is the best at the game world in the grid, and he will eliminate anybody Clue points him at. Well, Kevin Flynn, recognizes this and then has to basically find a way to break the hold that Clue has on him and get him to revert back to being Tron. Pretty cool. And then during this, Sam meets Olivia Wilde's character, Cora, who is a... best way to put it is a free program. She was created artificially within the world. And the whole premise of the first movie was the extension of a user into the grid is a program. Well, though they've evolved in TRON Legacy to non-user NPCs, I guess you should say, non-player characters. They are living, breathing organisms inside the computer. And you find out that Olivia Wilde's character, Cora, is beyond what everyone thought. She's not an algorithm or a program made. She was essentially born and is a free... like, she doesn't have an end control unit. Like, she's not part of the program. So she's free to make her own decisions. She can do whatever she needs to. It's a crazy fucking idea. Anyhow, so they team up with Kevin Flynn, to bring down Clue and free the system, much like the way Flynn did in the first movie. And it mirrors it, I say again, the same way, but it's also that same thing they did in the first movie, where he needs to bring down the control of the company to free it from the capitalism that is Edward Dillinger Jr. And by freeing the grid, he frees his company. But the biggest difference in this is he brings Cora cross with him back into the real world, and she's digitized into real matter, and she's alive in the real world. I guess that should be a spoiler as well. Anyways, so they're very interesting because they're very similar. I think the special effects in TRON Legacy are amazing, especially 10 years ago. They did a digitized young version of Jeff Bridges as younger Kevin Flynn when Sam was young, and it's pretty good. It doesn't hold up as nearly as good as a lot of the newer ones from like the Marvel movies, but it's still really good for back then. There's a little bit of wonkiness in it, but it still looks really good. But when they're in the game world, oh, it's so gorgeous. I love what they did with it. Anyhow, that's it for Tron and Tron Legacy. That's it for this week, or this month, of movies I also watched when I was young, just like Star Wars, or whatever the fuck I called it. Anyhow, so that's the end of this week's episode. The end of this month's theme. Tune in next month. We'll have a different theme, and I'll talk about different stuff, which I don't know what it is yet. So stay tuned. Same talk channel, same talk time, which makes no sense because you can listen to this whenever you want. And it's not an exact same channel because it comes from wherever you get it from, iTunes or Spotify or iHeartRadio or wherever you're listening to this from. Thank you for listening. Anyways, as usual, I'm Cody, your host. This has been The Awesome with Cody. And like I always say at the end of these, let's be awesome.